Hey, this is Jason Truding. I play in Percussion, and a while ago we started this Brooklyn Bound podcast, actually in September. And then, the world changed, and now I'm very excited that we are back up with this podcast. Actually, if you've checked them out before, they have only been audio podcasts with one person. And now it is very fun to do a Zoom video podcast with three wonderful people. And this is the first one we're doing actually in advance of our August 27th Brooklyn Bound virtual party show. So we're hanging with JaW Percussion. In up in the left, we have Wes Fowler. The bottom left, this is in my view, I'm going to confuse you all, but in my view, we got Joe Barry, old friends from SOSI. And in the bottom right, we have Alex Richard, and we just met, and I'm so happy to meet you, Alex.
It's good to meet you too.
Yeah, we're in from four different states at the moment, but it's wonderful to be able to have a conversation. And I think I was telling you guys before we started rolling that my thing with these podcasts has just been asked the same 5 questions of the folks we're hanging with. They're pretty large, expansive questions, so the conversation can go many places, but that can just be our kind of common thread. So, the first one is a large one, but just get a sense of what each of your beginnings were in music. Like how what's been the Cliff Notes version of your path from beginnings to now. Joe, do you want to start? We've been emailing most about setting up this podcast, so I'm going to put you on the hot seat. When did you start playing?
So I'm actually a drum set player. I'm mainly a drum set player, and so I did that, and then a lot of marching band between.
But so when did you do that? Like you out of the womb, you were a drum set player.
5th grade drum set player.
Nice. And how did that? Why?
Family friend. So my brother is a year older than me, and the family friend was in his grade, and then his dad was also a drum teacher around the Birmingham area. And so, like, since we were already hanging out at their house, basically that kind of segued into drum lessons. And then I just, like, I loved John Bonham. My dad got me to like Led Zeppelin and Frank Zappa real early. So it was like, cool. The only thing I know about drums is drum set.
Man, I'm so happy, Joe. Can I just tell you, I'm sorry for the awkward Zoom cutoffs, but it's just going to happen. We're going to embrace it. But I have to tell you, Joe, I'm so excited that you've been in Led Zeppelin. You've been into Led Zeppelin from the beginning. One of the members of my band, who's going to go maybe nameless, the other day we were in a coffee shop, like back when we used to tour. We were in a coffee shop, and Led Zeppelin was they were just playing the Zeppelin hits, and he's like, I've been listening to a little Led Zeppelin lately. They are a great band. What happened, dude? Like you're my demographic. You're almost 40. How did you not know this?
Man.
So I'm very happy. That just says to me, I guess, how old your dad was. It makes sense that that's the music you were listening to. But that's a wonderful,
Well, I mean, when my dad was a kid, Led Zeppelin actually came to Alabama. They played on the University of Alabama. So my drum teacher at Alabama was actually at that show in Tuscaloosa in the 70s. But I don't think my dad went. But
that's cool.
That was the music played around my house.
And so you went to Alabama and you studied in Florida too, right? Or no?
Feeney.
Yeah, Feeney at Alabama. Yeah, right. You studied with Feeney at University of Alabama.
Yes, you cut out hard there, so I don't know.
Okay, just roll with it. We'll pretend it's all cool.
Segue. Yeah, so I studied with Feeney at Alabama, and then my drum set teacher, who's like a local legend named Mark Lanter, and he teaches at like 400 different schools and every private lesson, and then plays every gig in Birmingham and like the Bible Belt area. And I stayed with them, and then I went for a jazz grad degree at Florida State and studied with Leon Anderson, who is the GOAT.
Awesome. Love it. The GOAT. So Wes, what about you? So Joe, I met you at SOSI 20 something.
17.
17. So Wes, were you at that same hang?
Yeah,
That's where, is that where you met Joe?
yeah. Joe and I met at SOCI 2017, and that's the only
Awesome.
year that I went. So I think that was the first time we got to interact,
Yeah.
Jason. And yeah, just kind of as a result of being on pieces together, we got to work with Eric a lot. We just spent a lot of time together. And I think what's great about SOCI is there's so much time rehearsing and doing everything, but there's plenty of time over coffee, over meals, where you just get to form relationships. And Joe and I just kind of clicked, and we've been hanging out, even though we've never lived in the same state like ever
Yeah.
since, basically. But yeah, it was through SOCI 2017.
That's wonderful. I really love hearing stories like that. I mean, I think that's part of a mark of my age too, that like I thinking like, oh man, something we did led to these cool relationships happen. Feels super cool. But so when did you start playing drum set, or what was your into percussion, or to what you do?
My intro to percussion just has a bit of irony looking back to it. But like a lot of people, I started in elementary school around fifth grade, and I had the option to pick what instrument I played. And for me, I was looking at all the options, and I was like, man, I just really don't want to read any notes. I like hate reading notes. I don't want to do it. I'll play drums. And one thing led to the other, and yeah, it was a good decision. I
It's
read a lot of notes now, but
Well, that's what I was gonna ask. In your life now, maybe you do read notes, but at the beginning, you
at
got
the
to just.
beginning, I was taking drum set lessons out of music and arts um, and then I was like doing just on a pad and stuff in elementary school, and then middle school and high school. I really loved marching band. Like I was definitely a drumline band kind of guy. I eventually started studying with John Kilkenny, who teaches at George
Oh, cool.
Mason University, which because of proximity is like right across the street from the high school that I went to in Northern Virginia. Um,
Where
so,
was that? My partner grew up in Springfield, Virginia.
oh,
I
really?
imagine, I mean, it's just right by George Mason. It was really
Yeah,
close, I think.
it's
Yeah.
James W. Robinson Secondary School or high school. It's funny talking one of my current teachers now, Kyle Brightwell, who's at Boston Conservatory, where I'm at now. We bonded over the fact of being Nova kids or like Northern Virginia
Yeah.
kids, because it seems like this whole hub of like suburban neighborhoods that everyone eventually just tries to get out of and like get in the real world. But
Right.
it's a good place to grow up. Yeah,
And you've managed. You're out of suburbia,
I
and
did.
you're in
Yeah.
you're in Boston now. You're at Boco. Yeah.
Yep. So in high school, through kind of my lessons with Kilkenny, I got really interested in concert percussion, and I went for my undergrad to the University of Tennessee at Knoxville, which is where Alex Richard and I met.
Oh,
We're both
cool.
colleagues there, and we were
Was that
studying.
Andy Bliss?
Yep.
Was your
Yeah,
teacher?
Andy Bliss
Awesome.
was there, and he was just super influential in the way I think about being a professional musician, about um, things that are important in life, and just the ways to tackle complex problems. I think he's such a good thinker when it comes to problem solving and time management. And for an undergrad, that's like who you need. Um, and then after that, I ended up moving up here to Boston just about a year ago now, to study at Boston Conservatory with Doug Perkins, Nancy Zeltzman, Sam Solomon, and Kyle Brightwell.
And then Doug left you.
Yeah, and then Doug, we had our first lesson, and he's like, like, I don't know if this is gonna work out. I think I gotta get out of this state.
This is so bad. I need to get to Michigan. I need to get to another
Yep,
state.
yep. He fled the state.
That's really funny. Yeah,
Yeah,
I love Andy Bliss. I don't know what protocol is on a video podcast because I've never done one before, but I almost wanted to start taking notes and be like, we converse every once in a while just around Neef North and around what he's doing. And I totally agree that he's such a cool
yeah.
thinker. And we were actually supposed to be down in Knoxville this spring, which is always a pleasure.
No.
I was going to ask had been down in Knoxville a couple times. Have we met before down there, or is this actually our first meeting?
I have seen So in Knoxville before, but I don't think we've actually
We
like,
didn't. Okay, wonderful. I'm sad to hear that, but I'm happy to hear that, because I always you know, if somebody's met before, then you say you're meeting them for the first time. It's just kind of a crappy thing. But when we were down in Knoxville one time, we played drumming with some folks from the university, or it was kind of Neef/North / university folks. So that's cool. So what led you to Knoxville, Alex? What were your beginnings?
So in about 5th grade, I really wanted to be a rock and roll drummer, and just be in like a heavy metal band. My dad listened to a lot of like Metallica and a lot of Styx in the car. My mom listened to a lot of like 80s pop, and so I was just very much like, I kind of liked both of those. And so I was going to do that by joining the 6th grade band. And so I got my little glockenspiel and my little drum pad and started learning. And then in high school, joined the marching band. My high school was very heavily into marching band, not quite so much on the concert side. And then ended up at UT a few years later. And then that's where like my mind was blown by just seeing all of the different, like you said, like Andy was super steeped in contemporary percussion and contemporary chamber music, and I like had no idea that world existed. And being in Knoxville, we were really fortunate, Wes and I, to see Neef/North happening, and then to be able to participate in Neef/North, and to be able to go to the Figures Festival. That's like all just super local. Excuse me. And so that was really influential on my music taste. And like I said, I had never been really exposed to that before, and now it's like the thing I love the most. But at UT, I got my education degree, so I did some student teaching and did a lot of teching around the Knoxville area. And now I am at Nebraska, about to start my 2nd year with Dave Hall.
Cool. But so going back, you started in such a fun place. You were hearing heavy metal in the car from one of your parents. You were hearing 80s rock in the car. You had the goal of being a heavy metal / rock drummer, and the drum pad got in the way. Is there more of that story? Have you fulfilled that side? Have you played in a heavy metal band yet, or is that still something that we should be trying to figure out? Or does JaW Percussion need to expand your horizons, their horizons, to allow for that? Like, have you done that, or did your tastes go a different way from the drum pad moment?
It's definitely still on the list and still aligned with my taste, but I haven't really gotten to it.
Yeah.
More contemporary percussion, and like I said, my high school was very marching focused, so I was like in the front ensemble doing a lot of like marimba for a long time. Not as much focused on drum set stuff, but it is still on the list. I would like to do it.
That's cool. I think I was telling you all before we pushed record, I have two I was gonna say young kids, just kids, 7-year-old and a 9-year-old, both pretty musical. And Elsie, the 9-year-old, definitely a drummer. You know, we all of a sudden now we have 2 drum sets in our house, because during COVID we can just throw more things in your house, because that's the only place we can play drums together, which is great. But she had that moment in her 3rd grade band of choosing instrument, right? And the drums, they show you a pad and a glockenspiel. It doesn't really sound like a glockenspiel even, you know. And then you have these other instruments that are actually what they are, you know. And it feels like such a wrong sell, you know what I mean? I guess I understand if you're the music teacher. I understand if there's just a bunch of people going like this in the back, that can be really terrible. But it feels like the pad is a hard sell, you know. We all probably started that way, but
yeah. I guess I just kind of went into it with the thought of like, okay, well, this is the first step. I got to learn my glockenspiel and learn my drum pad. So
yeah,
and that kind of spiraled off this way and ended up in contemporary chamber percussion.
Love it. Well, yeah, let's move to that idea. So how did JaW Percussion get going? And yeah, well, let's start with that. Just how did JaW Percussion get going? 2017, it sounds like, in this suburban New Jersey town of Princeton, we had a festival called SOSI, and a young Wes and young Joe met each other, hung at the dining hall. Is that the story? What happened next?
It kind of is. It was like on the last day, and I think I just kind of half jokingly, half seriously was like, "Hey man, you want to have a duo?" And then, so we had played one of the things that, if the audience tunes into the Brooklyn Bound online extravaganza, they'll hear 4+9, which is a really, really fun quartet that Eric wrote. I think it was knocking around in his head, and then actually Fong Tran, who is part of Media Queer, who was also on this, I think he was our group's Small World student composer, but then he had to pull out.
Yep.
So I think somewhere knocking around in this room, I actually still have my part to his piece, but because he wasn't going to be able to do the festival and go through the process that y'all do in the festival of like building the piece and changing the piece with the ensemble, Eric stepped in as the student composer.
Right. That's I didn't realize that connection between you. I didn't put that all together.
I didn't realize that until I think actually a couple months ago when I was like cleaning my room, and it was like, oh, and then all the dots kind of lined up. But yeah, and then I got back to Tallahassee for grad school. I just kind of had a lot of time on my hands, and it was like, well, if I don't like actually do this, it's just going to kind of fall by the wayside. And so I was like, well, what if we just take this? Like, it basically took one hand as a quartet to play Eric's quartet, and it's like, well, we got two hands. Let's see if it's possible to do it as a duo.
That's
and
really.
So then I spent like the week before grad school started, just like condensing that score and seeing if it worked. And then
so that was the first JaW percussion project. I mean, that's the first thing I saw of you all for sure. That's totally cool. So 4 and 9. So when it was played at Small World, yeah, it was a quartet. And then also it was so tricky to get together in that amount of time that I remember Eric was playing like 16 notes on a shekre or something, some kind of grid to line it all up.
Yeah.
Because I'll say knowing we play it now, and so on pipes usually more than decibels. We started playing on pipes just because we feel like we can control our things a bit better maybe. And that's a really tricky piece of music. So I know when I first saw that video, it was like, oh wow, that's like just super impressive and an awesome project. And so is it true, if I'm remembering right, Eric Chabich, who didn't learn about Led Zeppelin until he was 36.
I had a feeling that was him.
Yeah.
He said almost 40, and I was like, all right, that's cutting a couple out.
I'm just joking. Yeah, exactly. That was coy with that one, right? No, I'm throwing him under the bus.
Like, wow, these guys really got something going on.
Yeah, it's not that he didn't know anything. All right, sorry, Eric. If Eric's not going to listen to this, but so. If I'm remembering right, so he wrote a double quartet for us to play with the JaW quartet. It was like string quartet and it was kind of like, I think it was conceived of to be able to be just maybe a string quartet, and then the octet kind of made sense. And so was that another project that you guys have jumped into?
No, we jumped into Sirius 9. His like Princeton faculty string quartet, and then that just really fell through.
That's been a project we were starting to put together right now, but basically just because of limited instruments and like our limited setups. Like I'm in like a 1-room apartment, and Joe's got like a 50-year-old out of tune piano. We're basically
sounds perfect. What's the problem? It sounds like it's built to be a cool thing.
No.
Sounds amazing.
I was like, oh yeah, man, this is gonna be crunchy. And like it's like overcooked sardines crunchy. Like it's not good. It's really not good.
That one's
overcooked. I literally like that, overcooked sardines.
Yeah,
okay, so
9 is in the works, but this original desk bell quartet evolved into this 4-mallet percussion duo that we videoed, and it was really cool because all the materials that we used for the piece, Joe actually made himself. Something that I really enjoy about being in a duo with Joe is that he often makes like more than 75% of the things that we hit. He like cut some slated tile and some steel channel rods that just sound awesome, and they pair so well. And he just drove that stuff up to Knoxville. And we had pretty loose access to the recital hall that I think is pretty uncommon. We basically had like absolute control of the recital hall.
Because you knew how to sneak in the back door, or just because it was cool?
I knew
Or
the
both?
guy who was in charge of the recital, and we were,
You know the guy. You know the
yeah,
guy. Gotcha.
you know the
Gotcha.
guy, then like you're set. But Joe brought all that stuff up, and when Eric wrote this piece, it was in like a spreadsheet format. I think Eric and Joe also love spreadsheets, and it's something that's
Love it.
growing on me. Like, as opposed to like traditional music notation, it'll be like,
What do you mean by
here's the cell,
traditional
and you're
music?
gonna repeat it this amount of times, and I'm like, okay, I think I got this. And it's such an efficient way to like create cheat sheets and create music for some of these projects. And
Wes, I love this conversation. This is a conversation that I just love having in life, and it's definitely a conversation in our band as well. Of folks in the band that think that way, and folks in the band that think left to right. You know, I feel like the kind of cheat sheet notation, the kind of Excel spreadsheet notation, or any of that kind of stuff is thinking in cycle. It means you're thinking in cycles. You're thinking cyclically.
right.
And then and I think I've learned music that way for a long time. And I'm Joe. I imagine with Joe, it's because for me, partly it was being a drummer, studying in a jazz program where you deal with forms,
Yeah.
And I just love this conversation because there's other folks in the group that very much, think left to right, in that kind of way, which is something that I'm, I do, not my, so I love that you brought that up. I really love that. And I also love, I think of you guys a bit as the, Eric Beach Repertoire Ensemble. So I'm looking to see this other quartet happen. But
Give
so
us that octet, and then we'll just knock out.
well, that's kind of what I thought you were thinking, which I love that piece of music. That I would flip out if two people learned how to play those 4-part. That would be really phenomenal and to the point of impossibility, I think. But so on this Brooklyn Bound set, we're gonna hear 4+9, but we're also, there's another project. Alex isn't just hanging because she's a great friend of you two and hopefully now me. But so can we tell us about that? Alex, do you want to tell us about that, or is it called Hazardous Materials?
Yes, it's called Hazardous Materials by David Cole, and so it's a trio, and so that's why they asked me to play. So I had met Joe a couple other times when he'd been in Knoxville, and then they decided to take on this project and asked if I wanted to join, and I was very excited and super on board. And this project was really cool. So it uses transducers on frame drums for a lot of the material, so you get this really amazing resonance from the frame drums from these transducers, just like vibrating really soft to really loud, and it's really cool. And then there's just a bunch of like multi-materials either on tables below us or suspended next to the frame drums. And so that's always been a fun part for me, is pieces where you get to like build things and like construct things, and it just sort of like gives you a new sense of ownership. And I'm not very tech savvy, and that piece uses a lot of technology, so I felt like really good that I was like, okay, cool, I can help make tables, and we can go to Home Depot and we can hang things, and we can, so it was a lot of fun to put together, and we were fortunate to have David Paul in town with us. And you'll see in the video there's like a lot of red lighting, and a lot of that was added like while he was there. He was just like, we were trying to think about the lighting that we would do, and he was just like, what if I like programmed the lighting to this entire piece? And we were just like,
oh, cool.
Oh, yeah.
That's awesome. So where did y'all meet Dave? What's
So this project was a result of a cold email. I basically was just researching repertoire, and I came across this trio that it was written for line upon line percussion. And I came upon a video of that trio playing this piece, and I just thought, wow, I love this piece. And my now wife, Kendall, and I, she's a videographer, and we had been making a couple of video projects together, and we just thought, like, wouldn't it be cool if we could try and make a really great video production of this trio? So basically, I emailed David and was like, hey, we want to record your piece and basically provide you with a video that you can document it, which I think is really popular these days in making like music videos to put in your resume. So I emailed him. We started investing in some of the audio material, and it wasn't until we realized how much the lighting material was going to be, that and how complicated. You know, David is an amazing programmer on Macs and through software. And he's like, yeah, the patch is really simple, super simple. I'll email it to you. And I opened it up and I was like, okay, I think we should fly him over here.
Yeah.
This is like, I'm a little out of my element. So he saw an opera one night and then was flying from basically UC Berkeley to Knoxville like the other day. And we were able to fly him there, and he was like instrumental in putting together the visuals for the project. But
Awesome.
I think it's a really great example of how composers want their music to be played. And even if you might be nervous if there's like an age gap, or if you feel like there's some kind of professional gap, that if you just communicate that you really are into someone's stuff, they might be willing to do a lot more than you might expect to make that happen. And David was just completely on board, you know, like got on a plane ticket, crashed on my couch, put in a lot of work to make the project happen, all starting from just an email relationship.
That's awesome. That's really cool, Wes. I feel like, you know, that's, I totally endorse everything you just said. And the feeling of like, I feel like one thing about our community, and I don't know, maybe all of us on this call have a pretty much similar community, but overlapping kind of communities. I feel like everybody in these communities, the reason you're in the community is driven by like passion and excitement for something. It can't be monetarily driven. You know, it just doesn't make sense. Like if it's monetarily driven, you've made some terrible choices in your life. You know, like it makes no sense that that's the driving force behind what anybody does in the field. So I totally agree that there's this feeling of like, yeah, let's do this. And that resonates with me a little bit in terms of like, this podcast is not about me, so I should probably just stop talking. But I feel like when So first met David Lang, I think we saw him, and he was as like a, you know, super successful composer in the scene. What I didn't realize is that he saw us, which is probably the way David saw you all, as like, you know, really gung-ho young graduate students who are willing to put in a lot more time than professionals are. You know what I mean? Like, you have time. It doesn't feel like you have time, but you have time to commit these amazing, this energy to what other folks are doing. So I totally see, it feels a little bit wise beyond your years to say that, Wes, is all I was trying to say. I totally see that view. Can well, is there anything else on your set? I probably should know this. Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay, cool. I just didn't want to skip over anything. So, is this the first time that you all are playing trio together?
As far as that video, yes.
Yeah, cool. And so is that with JaW, has JaW been, you've been conceived of as a duo, but is this the idea of bringing in folks to play other types of pieces feels pretty cool. Is that something that you're thinking about, or right now is it mostly a duo project? And I guess I'm trying to see, like, are you hiring Alex, or is there still a conversation? I couldn't tell where it was at.
I'd say the door is always open. You
Nice
know?
one.
We definitely started out pursuing duo repertoire, and we're like, that's like our main focus, but like the door is always open to invite non-percussionists to play with us, or other percussionists, or sound artists, or like visual artists. So I think, you know, Joe and I started this project with the intention of like, we just want to create interesting things, and that naturally I think leads you to include others and then expand your reach. So Alex and I are great friends, and we spent literally all day, every day together because we were in the studio together. So I told her about the project, and she was like, heck yeah.
That's cool. That's really cool. I do feel like, maybe this is going to lead to a next question, but for me, in this moment of, you know, COVID, remote, so has been working pretty much remote. We've been in the room one time in the last 5 months, and it took a lot to get in the room together. A lot of COVID tests, a lot of like safety precautions at the hall. You know, it was like really insane to get in the room together. So we've been excited to do remote projects. And the thing that we've learned about it is that actually like collaborating with people. That's one of the things that's cool about remote projects, right? Is that like, you three are in 3 different places right now, but actually if there's interest in collaborating in a different way, or, So has interest in collaborating with folks that don't live where we do, oh, wow, all of a sudden reframing things, there's a different thing to take from it, a different way to work. But what I wanted to ask, I mean, it's, we've been alluding to it, but there's just, no way around the fact that like, this is an intense time, like I feel like I keep recently going back to the idea, like I'm a parent, and usually my kids are going through something that me or Beth have been through on some level, and so then the world starts to go through something. It's like, wow, like, they're thinking like, wow, my parents have never been through this. What the hell? And then you're like, wait, no, actually, like nobody living has been through this, right? And then like, with the COVID quarantine isolation feeling, and then I think, over the last 3 months, you double that with the Black Lives Matter movement and the, that conversation and protest and action, putting those 2 things together, it's like just kind of just impossible for me to feel any sense of normalcy, right? And so what are you guys dealing with in this moment, or how has that influenced your practice, or what's on your mind there, or maybe open into conversation of just recognizing the insanity and importance of the moment. I'm gonna have to call on people. We could go in reverse alphabetical order.
I mean, part of the reason why the serious project fell through, and I think I told Shelby, and I don't know if she told you this, and I've told Wes, was because like for like 3 months, like I was just super depressed. So it was like, cool, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna get this like one piano part done today. And then just that, like every single day was just like hitting a wall, and it was like, it's not happening today. It's not happening today. So it was just kind of droned on.
Yeah.
But I'm out. I'm good.
Yeah.
We're out of the basin. But
which I feel that in terms of, I don't know if you feel this. For me, I'm sure you guys have hit this moment in your life. I think I had hit it by the time I was your age, but it's really, you hit it more and more as you just go through this, of just like, I am very passionate about this thing that is this niche thing of this niche thing. And I'm spending all this energy on this niche thing of this niche thing. If I put that energy towards something more important, wouldn't that be a better use of my time, right? But then for me, then I go back the other side too, that, for me, kind of committing to doing work during this time can also be a grounding thing. Like, so you working out the serious 9 piano part or whatever, or whatever it is, in some ways I bet it feels futile, but in some ways it feels grounding. And I feel like that's important. It's not, art is not unnecessary, personally and communally. Did you go through that process? Is that where you're at?
Yeah. So, I mean, the biggest 2 things, like, I'm just a very simple person. Like, people are like, what do you do? And it's like, well, I pet my cat, I ride my bike, and I play drums. And it's like, looking back on those couple months, it's like, well, what wasn't I doing? Well, I got away from playing drums, and then a series of things kept me from riding the bike. And it's like, okay, well, I stopped training and I stopped playing drums. So then I started training again. I started playing drums. Guess what? That helped me. So
yeah. It's a lot of cat petting, man. When you take,
you
take away the other things, it's just like your poor cat,
Yeah, I would, like, there's a 20-pound cat laying right next to me, but he's too lazy to jump in my lap like Bubbles did. Otherwise, I'd show you. But
love it. There's an 80-pound pit bull lying next to me that is too lazy to jump in my lap too. So, no, that's cool to hear. Thanks for sharing that, Joe. I feel like that resonates with me for sure. Wes or Alex, like, have you guys been, what's your way of processing this moment, or what's on your minds?
Well, I guess sort of similar to Joe. I just sort of like felt like, the ground was sort of ripped out from underneath us, especially performing. Like, I had a chamber recital lined up that didn't get to happen, and when I'm still in school, so I had to like complete classes still, which felt very weird. And I was teaching the like percussion methods class for undergraduate majors, so I had to like flip that onto online, and then sort of once the semester was over, I just took a very long break. And that's when like Black Lives Matter started coming up. So I spent a lot of time just like researching and learning and signing tons of petitions and trying to find like Black artists to look into and try to promote. But I was still not like in a great headspace to just like practice solo literature. So it took a lot. Now that school is kind of starting back up again, I'm starting to sort of like have some deadlines and get a little bit more routine. But for a few months there, it was like just really difficult to start on that.
Yeah, totally. That, yeah, I feel like everybody's going like this on the, on the call. Like, you know, I feel that. I feel that out. Deadlines in a weird, I don't know, maybe there's a question of like, you know, we're all searching for normalcy, but also just like realizing that like there has to be a new normal and how to deal with that. Like with Black Lives Matter, you know, it feels like like normal is not good, right? With COVID, normal would be good. I'm yearning for normalcy through COVID. I'm yearning to be in a room, hear you guys play in Brooklyn Bound. I'm yearning to share music in a space together. So that normal I'm kind of yearning for. But then with these other larger social issues, right, the idea of normal doesn't exist. So then, you know, what are those two things? How do we deal with that, you know, as, I mean, white people thinking about this, you know? Wes, what are you thinking? How's this moment been for you?
Right. For me, it's been, like a lot of people, it's just been dealing with a lot of change in a short period of time. It seemed like everyone was just doing their best to try and figure out what the safest thing to do was. And for me, I, like Alex, was in my first year of my master's at Boston Conservatory, and our classes went online, and I'm in a small, like, one-room apartment in Boston, and I ended up spending some time with my parents and then Kendall's parents, and we were in Knoxville actually staying with Kendall's family when George Floyd was murdered. And I think, you know, my education has been like drastically affected by COVID. And I'm taking time off from school in the upcoming year, so I'll be out of school for the first time. But that time in Knoxville allowed us to have conversations that we had never had before as a family. And I think I was just confronted with the reality of my situation compared to the reality of the situation of Black people my age. You know, my parents didn't sit me down when I was 8 years old to explain racism to me. And it was just a time that I think, because things were taken away, like something else was given to us, we were able to have conversations that are really vital for white people to have, I think, to try and empathize and learn about these experiences. And since then, I've been trying to pursue what real activism looks like in your school curriculum and also outside of school programs, and also just trying to learn repertoire by Black composers and seek out resources. I was watching this video that's on YouTube. It's with like the Library of Congress called The Cry of Jazz. It's like totally free, just half hour, but it just blew my mind. It's a really amazing video from the 50s actually that really resonated with me today. So I'd really highly recommend it to check it out. But yeah, it's like, I'm not going to be in school for the first time in a really long time. I'm just going to be working and pursuing independent projects. And while we're all trying to find like the new normal and trying to adjust to these times, you know, because we do have to believe that it's temporary. Because of that, there are things I can be doing to make myself a better person, to make myself a better human, and to help others who aren't in the same position as I am. So it's just, for me, I really view it like, you know, things have been taken away and new things that are being shown to me that were lacking in my life before.
That's an awesome way to look at it. I feel like so much, I mean, I appreciate you guys having this conversation like this. It's also just such a hard thing to talk about on any level over Zoom, you know? And so it's like these two things, this like lack of being in the same room as somebody to have some difficult conversations. You know, I think so much of me right now is thinking about this through the lens of being a parent. And when you said, Wes, it's like, you know, the more conversations I'm a part of, when it's like, oh, wow, you know, like, have you had the talk yet? Oh, actually, I don't have to give the talk to a 7 and 9-year-old white girl.
Yeah.
But friends and colleagues and other dads of color have to give that talk to somebody who's 7, to somebody who's 9, you know, to say, keep your hands in your pocket when you go to buy bubble gum. You know, it's like those things, realizing just like learning how to talk about it feels like an important step. And it's nice to feel like for us right now, it feels like we're all in that moment together in a certain way. I have a more positive last question to end our Zoom on, but I just would say, especially with Wes and JaW as Soci alum, but Alex as a new friend and honorary Soci alum. I don't even know if you want to be a Soci. You know, it's to bestow an honor on somebody that may not be an honor.
Mail her a cold okie.
Yeah, exactly. No, more just meaning a new friend. I think I really appreciate having these conversations with folks who are intergenerational as well, like what you guys are thinking about with folks your age versus what I'm thinking about with you know, parents my age or whatever that is. So I'll say that the email and phone is always open to have these conversations. I think so is definitely thinking about this in terms of who we are as an organization and how we think about this. I mean, I'm thinking about it personally, but then like thinking about it organizationally is almost more important and more difficult. So I would say I just welcome, you know, if you're ever thinking about Soci experiences you had that could be, you know, better or changed or whatever, I guess just the door is always open to a conversation. I think we're all learning how to have it. But I wanted to say, coming out of the COVID part of that question, I guess, or the Brooklyn Bound idea that, you know, everybody's going to be experiencing this show, you know, virtually, thinking back in a more fun way to when you used to play concerts for people. Do you have any, I know, so like we think through, I think one of our bonding things when we're in a van together driving from, you know, whatever, 6 hours from one show to the next is, you know, sometimes we'll start to think about the kind of memorable concert moments. And I don't know what this says about us, that mostly we're thinking about the things that just went drastically wrong for us. Like we should be probably thinking, there's like definitely, if you have a wonderful concert moment that you remember, I should start thinking about the ones that were just really poignant and wonderful. You know, I think more about the ones, you know, where like, you know, the flower pot got knocked off the thing and cracked on, you know, or just the kind of wild moments. But I would love to hear if you guys have any memorable moments, either personally or as JaW, you know, just memorable concert moments that maybe now are kind of nice and nostalgic to think about for a moment until we can get back to that normal. Take it, Joe.
Oh no, I was saying.
Oh, you're
I'll
deferring
talk first every time. Alex, what's up?
Oh, okay.
That's how I do it.
Oh gosh. There's a lot of good things to remember, of course.
Well, that's great. I welcome the good things, you know.
Yeah. I feel like I tell this story all the time, but one of my personal favorite sort of like happenings around a piece was we did an Uxuit as a part of the Big Ears Festival, and Steve Schick and John Luther Adams were there, kind of like leading us, which was really amazing. Yeah. Were you there too, Joe? Yeah.
I have a scar on my pinky from where I busted it on a bass drum hoop.
Yeah.
Nice.
That was so much fun. And we did it in this big park in Knoxville called the Iams Nature Center. And I was playing the drum part, and for part of the rehearsal, they were kind of like situating us around and staging us so that we weren't crazy far apart, but still like enough to really feel the space. And so I just like had a tom-tom with me and was like standing in this cool little like tree nook, and they were like coming around and finding people and being like, oh, let's move you this way a little bit. And So they were like, they found me and I was a little too far away from everybody. So they're like, all right, well, follow us. So I was just like kind of as like a sophomore in undergrad, not really understanding just who like John Luther Adams and Steve Schick were. It was just like following them around with a tom-tom around a nature park for like half an hour.
Awesome.
And they kind of turned around and they were like, oh, we have to put you somewhere. Kind of forgot, but it was just like a really silly moment, and that was a lot of fun. And
Awesome.
yeah, and all three of us were there, and it was just a really memorable moment for me, just walking around nature park with my little tom-tom.
Love it. One is one of the things I feel like I've played that piece a couple times, not as many times as some folks who've really, been in it deep, but like it feels to me like the music is memorable, but just the experience of everybody gathering and making this wild thing happen. And I feel like talking about our community of percussionists, just the idea that that's possible, that I don't know how many people were there when you did an Uxbridge there, like when I've been involved in ones that actually had 99 people, and you're like, how does that, this person drove from Texas, like this person drove from, like, the idea that our scene is committed enough to these moments. Like, how many other scenes are like that? Hopefully a lot, but like, I think that's awesome, Alex. Totally. That resonates with me. I'm not sure I've done that part of it, but I've definitely done the, like, does anybody know where I'm supposed to be? Like, what am I supposed to be doing? So Wes, you were there as well?
Yep. Technically, that was the first time Joe and I met, though we didn't really hit it off till like 2017 SoC. But yeah, I was there also, and it was like pretty early on at Tennessee. It was just a great opportunity. I played the drum part too.
Played the drum part too.
Found some railroad tracks, set up right by there, and that was one of my like early memories, I think, from playing music in Knoxville. And I just think that city is such a unique combination of like really scruffy, but also really just like fascinating and intellectual and great. Yeah, that's a great memory for me too. Another memory I have that kind of involves all three of us. It's not exactly a live performance memory, but we also recorded a chime duo by Tristan Parrish called Impermanent. It features 1-bit electronics and tubular bells. It's like 45 minutes of rolling on chimes at pianissimo. Can't miss it. We did a video project of this, and I think like the three of us went out to this bar in Knoxville called Sutry's, which has games. It's kind of like an arcade bar, but it also has ramen. So it's like a ramen arcade bar.
Sounds amazing.
Great, yeah.
Awesome.
I hope they're still there because of COVID. But we went, and naturally we're going to play Galaga, but the machine was broken, and it had these like really strange, like it was like a solid beam of light moving across the screen that would like freeze and then go back and then move. And all of us were there, and Kendall was there, and Kendall was like, wow, I think we should incorporate this visual with Tristan Parrish's piece. So we basically videoed Broken Galaga together, and this is after like ramen and some drinks and like some arcade fun, and then like brought it back to the recital hall, borrowed a projector from a connection in the art department, and Kendall, through some overnight work, basically created this Galaga parallel line projection that we ended up slapping on top of the piece. And Tristan was like, hey, I think it works surprisingly well.
I was gonna say that feels very Tristan to me.
Yeah,
right? Like I know
like,
is
well paced.
yeah. Well, I don't know if you've seen, he early on, if you were to play a piece of Tristan's before there was any money involved, I think it was something like, as a performer, you could choose to get paid $20 or get a machine drawing of his that are beautiful, but they're like these line drawings, that to me, so I think everybody did the line drawing because they were just really beautiful.
Right.
But it feels to me like it very much speaks that language. Like
that. I didn't make that connection before.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was just a funny memory, because also just going back to how Joe and I like first met in the quartet that Eric ended up having to make happen for SoC, like it's crazy to think how many like of these good memories do come from like accidents, but we
Yeah.
like look back at it and it's like some of the best moments of our chamber music career, like those moments that just really stick with us that we get to enjoy and share
Yeah.
together. So
That's cool. I'm really trying to take that. I think everybody in SO is trying to take what are those things out of this moment that we didn't expect to make music this way, but we're finding some real enjoyment in making music in a certain way right now. I'm hoping it's not for the rest of my life, but just what are those things that are going to lead to cool paths versus the things that, like, you know, I don't know, if I never hear about Zoom again, maybe I'm going to be okay. I don't know. You know, like, why am I a Zoom expert right now to teach and share my screen and blah, blah, blah. All right, Joe, you want to leave us with a good one?
Sure. So it kind of actually also has a, you've kind of invaded my life. Like, it still has a soci connection. So like,
The drumsticks you made me.
oh dude, yeah, I didn't make those, you stole them. But wait, no, I did make y'all some Wero sticks, didn't I?
Oh, no. I guess I was talking about the pointy. The
Oh,
pointy.
I still have those.
Yeah. You let me use them. I will say that.
I
That's not
did.
your fond memory. What is your fond memory?
I loaned them to you for a year. That is a very fond memory of like accidentally having like a quartet with former SO interns, Andrea Tefelsky, Lindsay Vasco, Evan Miller. Check all their stuff out. All 12 of you listening to this. But their stuff is really cool. Andrea and Lindsay have TV percussion, which is awesome. And then Evan has a duo with Andrew Sievert, Neutrals, which is really awesome. And then we kind of have this weird quartet that plays specifically Andrea Mozzarello's Symmetry and Sharing.
It's a really great piece of music that needs to be played. And when Wes was talking about how lucky it was being in a group with you where you make all the stuff, I just immediately thought of like, well, even if Joe, I felt like you were kind of sitting in with that. It was like TV plus you guys, right? At first, that was the way I was talking about.
It was absolutely.
And the idea that like you made all the instruments, I was like, that is awesome. You know, like the dude who's like, you know, starting off as the guest in this project just did it all. You know?
Well, I make stuff because I'm bad at things. Like the spreadsheets is because like how Wes started out where he's like, I don't want to read notes. Like that's me with a grad degree, like as a 25-year-old. It's like, I don't want to read notes. So just keep it in a spreadsheet. But also because Eric's writing specifically in 4 and 9, and then also in a lot of this stuff, like is very process based. So it's really easy to track. Like if I just put in a spreadsheet and then I can find and trace the process, go down the thing. But yeah, it's like I'm bad at hitting pipes because I'm not a marimba player, and my mallet, like my outside mallet accuracy is terrible. Well, what do? Like I find like instead of like a tiny little pipe, I find a 2-inch wide bar, and turns out I actually like that anyway, and like it's a lot easier to hit, and it's a lot harder to like hit it and then just like go off into the distance.
I'm with you. I subscribe to that.
And then those sticks was like, you know, well, we don't have pairs of sticks that sound the same. And like we were all hanging out at Lindsay's house for like a week before Soci, 2018, I guess. And then it was like, you know, well, we got to go to the like Berkeley Guitar Center, and they have a surprisingly terrible assortment of sticks. So
they could have some sticks. Berkeley.
You would think.
Yeah.
They had like.
So I need to drill in here, Joe.
Yeah.
The fond memory is which part? The people or the shopping, or the
It was a completely
self-deprecation.
It was a completely different story.
Which is the fond? Let me drill in on the fond memory. I think it was the people.
Oh, it's definitely always the people.
Yeah. Like the Andrea, Lindsay, Evan, and
yeah.
that performance was awesome. I love that piece of music so much, and it's really difficult and doesn't get played much because you have to sing. You have to be pretty okay at singing, which means I'll never play that piece of music.
I'm surprised.
Harmonize, right? It's like harmonize.
Yeah, I'm surprised they keep me in the quartet because I'm not a singer at all.
Come on. All right, Joe. Well, I feel like I need to ask another question to lead us out, but I feel like you led us in a real direction of thinking about people, which I think is, oh, that was a nice leaf that just dropped in my video screen.
Hey, look at that.
We can leave with that. Well, it has been a pleasure to talk with you all. What if we leave with
Hey, Georgia.
that picture of Georgia? You've met Georgia. Have you met Georgia?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
love Georgia.
I've never met Georgia.
Yeah. Well, Georgia, I'll leave you with the story of Georgia. Georgia, originally the original Soci mascot was Sammy, her dog, who was a wonderful, very confused Beagle, German Shepherd, Pit Bull mix. It didn't quite know what she was, but was really wonderful. And Sammy passed away. And when we were going to get a new dog, I thought maybe with young kids walking this dog, we shouldn't get a Pit Bull. Just I love pit bulls. They're so snuggly and wonderful, but they have strong jaws. Maybe we shouldn't get a pit bull. So we, through a shelter in Texas, actually, got a black lab retriever mix, originally named Regina George, that we named Georgia. And as soon as Beth picked her up and drove home and saw this big old pit bull head, it was like, not only did we get a pit bull, but we got a huge pit bull. We got an 85-pound pit bull that's like the sweetest dog and won't hurt a fly, but, could definitely kill a human. So yeah, that was it didn't quite go the way we thought it was. That'll be the way I lead this conversation out. Alex, it is amazing to meet you. I'm very happy to make new friends, even if over Zoom. Let's pretend like we actually met and this was the first meeting, so that if it ever happens in person, we can, be friends already. Wes, it is nice to connect again. It's been a second. And Joe, I feel like I haven't talked to you in a while either. Maybe I've texted or emailed with you a couple times, but it's wonderful to see all your faces and hear about what you're doing. And we're so excited to see and hear your set on August 27th. Do you guys know what time the show is? 8 o'clock. Do you know?
8 o'clock Eastern?
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely Eastern time. All times are Eastern. We're going to say, this is our first one. Somebody tell a fun story. I'm going to look up what time the show is at so as not to give out any bad information. And everybody's hung up the Zoom already. Everybody's stopped listening to the podcast by now. But I'm going to check it out.
I'm going to get a 20-pound cat real quick.
Yeah, show us a cat.
I don't have a cat to show you.
Come on. Oh, guys, I'm so glad I did this. It is at 7 p.m. Eastern time.
7 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m.
Yeah.
Central.
And, the website says Eastern Standard Time, which is also not true. It is Eastern Daylight Time. Not that anybody cares, but I just say ET so as not to mess up that one, So everybody can hear this set by JaW Percussion along with Secret Drum Band and Media Queer on August 27th at 7 p.m. You guys are going to be there? Do some chatting. The most fun thing about these shows is that, we actually, some people can get together and chat while music's happening, which I found strangely comforting to know that, a group of people are experiencing something together. So please be on to let us know your presence and to chat away. And I can't wait to see you guys again soon.
Thanks, Jason.
Bye, guys.
Thanks,
Thank you.
see ya.
Bye.
See ya.